Welcome back to Applied Mathematics. In this video, I want to review some of the problem-solving strategies that you should be familiar with involving percents and percent change. Let me get my head out of the way. We'll dive right in. Reminder, the word percent literally means out of 100. And so the most important thing to keep in mind when working with percents is that even though a percent looks like a number, a percent is not actually a number. So 37% literally is 37 out of 100, or 0.37 if you actually perform that division. You cannot do arithmetic on percents. You have to convert the percent to a fraction or a decimal. That way it is actually a number and you can start working with it. The other thing to pay attention to when working with percents is that percents do not stand on their own. You are always going to see percents in a context where it is a percent of something. And remember that the word of almost always means multiplication. So if you're looking at 42% of 295, 42% is the decimal 0.42. Of means multiplication. Well, not much we have to do with 295. We grab out our calculator. We multiply 0.42 times 295, and my calculator is quite happy to tell me that this comes out at 123.9. And not entirely clear here which values are going to be exact or approximate. Given context, we might know that the 42% is an approximate value, so we only have two significant digits and we should round from there. But without context, it's not clear and you have to look for explicit instructions about that. This example has to do with statistics and population analysis, but the idea, I think, can be found in a number of different fields of study and a number of different applications. Recent studies have found that 63% of adolescents have a television in their bedroom. Following from this, how many people would you expect that you need to survey to find 100 who have televisions in their bedroom? All right. So imagine that you are running a data study. You're trying to collect more information about adolescents who have televisions in their bedroom. You don't have a pool of adolescents who have televisions in their bedroom from which to sample. You have to cast a broad net and try to make a conjecture about how many of the respondents that you get from that broad net are actually going to fit into the category of people you're trying to study. So we know that 63% of adolescents have televisions in their bedroom. We don't know how many adolescents we are going to talk to, but we do know that we want to get 100 people when all is said and done. So, taking that percent, rewriting it as a decimal, remembering that percent of means multiplication, and rearranging to solve for x, I get, rounding to the nearest whole person. In this case, I don't really know what is exact or approximate, but I do know that writing down 158.73 people is nonsense, right? You can't survey 158.73 people. You have to survey a whole number of people, so we'll round it up and call it 159. Right. That's the basic idea of working with percents. And in most applications, that's really all we need. Although sometimes when we talk about percents, we talk about things a little bit differently. Over a recent 10-year period, the population of TownePlace has increased by 17%. If the population was 8,500 in 2013, what was the population in 2023? This situation is not a simple percent problem. This is a percent change problem. We know that because we are talking about an increase. Percent change is an umbrella term that talks about percent increase or percent decrease, which are two actually less related than they're going to appear concepts. All right, so we are going to increase by 17%. And that in and of itself can be a little bit challenging. Because remember that percents don't stand on their own. It's always a percent of some value. And in percent change problems, sometimes it's not clear which value you're dealing with because there are going to be two. The rule of thumb is that you are always going to take your percent of your starting value, which value was older in time. In this particular case, that starting value is given to us. It doesn't have to be, and we'll see that in the next example. All right, so we're going to take 8,500, the starting population. We are going to increase that, which means we're going to add, by 17%, decimal 0.17, of means multiply, and percent of that same starting population. Once again, my calculator will be happy to do the work for me. And I get that the population now is 9,945. All right, that's the basic idea. That's what we're looking at with a percent change situation. But again, you don't always have all of the information. Over a recent 5-year span, the population of Oldsville has decreased by 17%. If the population was 9,800 in 2022, what was the population 5 years earlier in 2017? Once again here, we know that we're dealing with a percent change. In this case, it is going to be a percent decrease problem. And once again, we're going to start off by thinking about decrease by 17% of the starting population. And there's where we run into trouble. We are given the population in 2022, and we're asked to find the population in 2017. Even though the 2022 population is what we know, that is not the starting population. That is the population after the decrease occurred. The starting population is our unknown. So we have to set this up algebraically. Our unknown starting population x decreased by means we're going to subtract 17%, 0.17, times that starting population x. And when we do that, the result should work out to be 9,800. This is a bit of messy algebra, but it's not that bad. Remember, you can always think about a variable by itself having a coefficient of 1, and it might make you a little bit more comfortable to write that as 1.00, so that we can combine like terms by subtracting the coefficients. 1 minus 0.17 is 0.83. And then we can get x by itself by just dividing. And my calculator is quite happy to tell me that this comes out to 11,000. Yeah, rounding to the nearest whole person, I think makes the most sense. 11,807. If you had rounded it and just called it 11,800 or even just 12,000, there's certainly an argument to be made for any of those results. The one thing that I want to stress about percent change problems is that percent increase and percent decrease, even though they sound very closely related, and even though mathematically they're very similar, they are not inverse relationships of each other. Right? We've solved this problem by calculating a percent decrease. And we had to go through a long algebra process, or relatively long algebra process to do that. Compare that to the percent increase problem that we had over here, where it was relatively shorter. The difference is not whether it was a percent increase or a percent decrease. The difference is, did we know the starting value or did we know the ending value? If we know the starting value, the algebra is easy. If we know the ending value, the algebra is harder, and there's just no two ways about it. The last thing I want to do real quick, find a little bit of space here, and just to show you what I mean. If I take the number 60 and I increase by it 20%, well, that's 60 plus 0.2 times 60. And my calculator is happy to tell me that comes out at 72. So 60 increased by 20% is 72. And if I wanted to flip that question around and ask you what number do you increase by 20% to end up at 72, well, based on the calculation we just did, we know the answer is going to be 60. But look at what happens if I try to do this as a percent decrease. Sorry about that. If I take 72 decreased by 20%, that's 72 minus 0.2 times 72. And my calculator will tell me 72 minus 0.2 times 72 is 57.6, not 60. Percent increase and percent decrease are not the inverse operations of each other. You cannot use one to solve the other. If you have a percent increase problem, you need to write it out using addition. And if you aren't given the initial value, it's going to be an unknown x. You're going to have to do some algebra. A decrease problem has to be subtraction. They are not inverses of each other. I guarantee someone is going to try to take that shortcut on an exam. Don't let yourself be that person. All right, that's all I have for you on this one. Thanks as always for joining me. I'll see you next time.